hackers, welcome back. Bash is a shell program that listens to commands. On Mac, we can use Bash with the terminal, which is built in and gives us a text-based interface for our commands. If you're on Windows, check out the links below to install Bash. So how does Bash work? I type in a command and Bash does it for me. I can have it echo me, so I can type echo hello, and it will give me that same output back. And I could put anything in those quotation marks. I could put my name, I could say I love tacos, whatever I want, and it prints it right back to me. That doesn't seem very powerful, but there are actually a lot of things built into this tool. For example, you can navigate your file system through commands. And so usually when you're navigating through your file system, you can create folders and you say hello bash, so you create a new folder, you can click into here, you're navigating, you can create a file. So I'm just creating this file, we're calling it hello.txt, it has this message in here, it's inside of my hello bash folder. I can click on the folder right here and go to my desktop, I can go into all of these, I can go into here. It looks a little different maybe than yours does because I show my hidden files, and so .aws.python, just .ipython, just so I can navigate them and see them. We can actually do all of this with text, and so giving it text commands versus clicking and dragging. The clicking and dragging part is part of the graphical user interface, so the idea that you're interfacing with the computer using graphics, clicking and dragging, that type of interface. Here we're just using text-based commands. And so the folder I'm actually in right here is my home folder. It's this folder. So when I go ls, which is a list command, which allows me to list this directory, see what's in it, we see all of the files and folders. Now we do not see the hidden files or folders, those ones that start with the dot, because we have to add something to this list command to basically say, hey, show me the hidden folders. I can do that with ls-a, and now it's showing me absolutely all of my folders and files with that dot in front of it. I can also type clear to kind of clean up what we're seeing here in our terminal. This terminal is actually just an interface, a text-based interface that we're using to access the Bash program. And so that's what is actually taking our commands and doing stuff with it. So now that we know we can list things, we can actually navigate into these directories or into these folders. Folder directory, same thing. So I can do cd, which is change directory, and I can go straight into that desktop where we have all of these folders. And then I can go into the hello bash folder that we just created, see what's in there. It's the hello.txt file. And I can actually see what's in this hello.txt file with cat and then the file name, which is hello.txt. And it shows me all of these different things. Hello, YouTube, it's me, Catherine, and tacos are good. Whatever message you typed in your file would appear here. To go back to a previous folder, I can go cd ... and now I'm back in the desktop. Dot represents your current directory, so if I go cd dot, I'm still in the same directory, nothing has really changed. Keeping with this file system stuff, we can actually make a directory inside of our desktop, and so making a new folder, we'll call it hello world. We can cd into hello world, and if we actually go back, we can see it's listed here, and over here it's also listed hello world. So we'll go back into hello world, and I can actually make files in here. So let's say I want to make a file. I'm going to use the Nano editor. There's also Vim and other things that exist, but Nano is my favorite. And so we will say index.html, and in this case I'm just going to do like an h1 hello YouTube, and we'll close it. And so this is just a simple HTML file that we're doing here. And then we'll save it out and exit. And if we go cat index.html, we see the hello YouTube right there in our output. We can also delete files. And so if I wanted to say, if we go back, if I wanted to remove like that file that's in hello bash, we could go remove hello.txt, and there we go. Nothing's in there anymore. If I go back, I can actually remove the entire folder, or the directory, along with everything in it. Right now there's nothing in it, but I could do remove-r, which is like a recursive delete, and so deleting everything in that folder to my hello bash folder. And now it no longer exists, and it no longer exists here on our file structure. Along with the file system, we can also get just information about our computer in general. So let's say I wanted to know what version of Python I'm running. We can do python-s version, and there it is in our printout. We can say which Python, and it shows me where it's stored in my computer. There's a lot of information you can automatically get without navigating through a bunch of stuff just from your terminal. Now you might have noticed I'm using a new type of keyboard, like this is super fun, and that's because we have a sponsor in this video. Our sponsor today is VitSing, and they have some great equipment for programming and coding. In this tutorial, I'm using one of their keyboards, which has fully customized RGB lighting. Here I have it set up for Halloween a little bit with the orange lighting, but it has over 16.8 million color options, and you can customize this with the software that they have created. You can adjust the brightness and add different backlighting effects to your keystrokes, and so your programming experience is different than anyone else's. This wired keyboard also has a detachable magnetic frame, so you can change this out so it matches your desktop and your vibe. Plus, it's a mechanical keyboard, and it's also very satisfying when your code works and you've typed in the correct mechanical thing in your mechanical keyboard, and it's great. They are offering a 20% discount with the code down below, so be sure to check that out. Another device I've been using in this tutorial is their mouse, which on one full charge lasts a year and a half. It's a wireless mouse, and it supports dual Bluetooth modes and 2.4G mode. There's only so great that a touchpad on your Mac or your Windows machine can be. When you have the actual mouse, like your hand doesn't cramp. There's so many benefits, so you should definitely check it out. It also has a sweat-resistant finish, which combines style and performance, so you can always be using this mouse and not get it super greasy and gross. Definitely check out the promo code I have down below so you can get these products as well. So let's break this down. What is Bash again? Bash is a shell program that listens to commands. If you think of other programs on your computer, you have Spotify to listen to music and Microsoft Word to type up documents, but Bash is different because it's not meant to perform a specific task. It's simply a program that you give commands to, and it does those commands. It's a way to interact with other programs and parts of your computer, and we do it with text. It's text-based. As we saw before, you can write a command to see what files we have in a folder. The command is to list the items in the folder, and the output is the items in the folder. Commands also have options that edit the output slightly. We saw ls-a for hidden files, and you can also do ls-l for a long listing format, so it shows those files listed in a different way. Now, there are many different types of shell programs with their own languages, but the most popular is Bash, or the born-again shell. The other ones out there use similar syntax, but they are different. In this tutorial, we are talking about Bash shellcode, which should only be used in the born-again shell and not any other. Now, single commands, they're pretty fun. We did ls, we did ls-a, we can do ls-la, or ls-l, giving us that long listing format, lots of different commands. But what if I want to run a list of commands? And so a series of commands, one after the other, and I really just want to give all the commands to my computer at once, and I want them to do each individually, so I don't have to go ls, cd, whatever I want to do. I just want to give them all at once, so that way it automates things for me. And that's often what you're going to be doing if you're programming in Bash for something. So what are we going to be building in this tutorial? Well, we are going to check if a given directory exists, and if it does, we're going to push it up to AWS S3. If you don't know what AWS is, Amazon Web Services, it's how Amazon makes money or attempts to. It's not through shopping and all these things, and it's a software service that lots of companies use. And so you can think of S3, so Amazon Web Services, AWS. S3 is one of the services they provide. You can think of it as Google Drive, essentially. It's a place you can store files, and then you can access them with the other services you might be using in Amazon Web Services. So how are we going to do this? Well, to create a series of commands that we want our shell here to run, we actually have to create a file, so a bash file. To do this, we're going to open Sublime, and inside of Sublime, we are going to write some stuff. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to do bin bash, and this just states like, hey, we are going to be running this in the born again shell. We are going to be running this with bash. It's just stating to the world that that is what this folder is supposed to be used for. Before we lose our progress, we are going to save this up, and I'm just going to save it right here on our desktop, and we are going to call it hellobash.sh. And we do .sh because it is a shell script. The shell program that we're going to be running it with is bash, which is why we have this bash thing here, and we're just going to save it just like that. So now that we have this saved up, what is our next step? Like, what do we do? Well, what we're trying to do is we're saying if a directory exists, push it up to AWS S3, and that's it. And really, we're pushing up to a bucket, which is essentially a folder in S3, and that is what we're doing here. The first part of this is if a directory exists. We need to be able to determine if the directory is real, meaning if there is a folder called blah, blah, blah on our file system. And then once we do that, we have to figure out this second component. To figure out if a directory exists, we need to have some kind of variable that's storing the value or the name of this directory. So to do that, we can do dir, and I'm just going to give it the name of hello world because that is the directory. We're going to say we're going to push up this index.html to S3, like that's what we want to do. So I'm going to hard code this, meaning I'm going to give this variable a value right now in like plain text versus asking for input. We're going to add that later so that the user running this file can determine it to be, and really it should be the files, push the files inside of it up to S3. So we're making this a little bit static at first, but then we're going to change it back. Now we have this variable that holds our directory. To check if it exists, we can go if -d dir, then else if. Okay. All right, so we have some code here. This is a conditional. We're saying if the directory exists, the $ here is how we access our variables. You'll notice there were no spaces between like the equal sign and like these different characters, and that's because this is how we set a variable in bash. Here, we're accessing the variable with the $ and then the variable's name, dir, and we're saying if the directory exists, so we're using this -g option here, then I'm going to actually echo the directory's name. So I'm going to go echo directory, and I'm going to actually make this a string, and we're going to say exists. Otherwise, and this should look similar to other languages you may have coded in before, otherwise the directory does not exist. This is our first step in here that we're doing. We are going to save this up, and we are going to run it. So how do we run this file? How do we check if this directory exists? Well, first we have to cd into our desktop where the bash file exists, so where the shell script exists. And to run it, there's a couple different things we could do. In this case, we're just going to use the bash command and give it the bash file. So lots of bash here. We'll hit enter. The directory does, in fact, exist. Now that we know our thing is working, it did find this hello world directory, we can open up this shell script again and make it a little bit more dynamic. So what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to say instead of hello world here, I'm going to go $1. What does that mean? Well, with this bash command, the first argument or input I'm giving it is this hellobash.sh, and that's actually the 0th argument. So if I added another thing here, that would be the first argument to this bash command, and we can access that automatic variable with the $1. Here we're renaming the variable so it makes sense later in our code, so dir makes more sense. You know, you could make a better variable name, sure, but that is what we're using today. So now if I take this command and I go bash, and I can actually just use the up arrow here, and I go hello world, it tells me it exists. Now let's say I change this and add a 1, it tells me it does not exist. Another thing I could do here is I could actually go .sh and I could just put hello world, and it tells me it exists. And so these two things are basically the same idea. All right, so now we can check if something exists. How do we push it up to S3? And really, we're not going to be pushing up the files. We're going to be syncing the files because the files could already be up there. We just want to sync the files. Like, so say I'm working on something locally, I want to push it up to S3 and sync things. That's what this command is going to do. So we're going to save this, and we are going to go to the world of AWS. So you may have to create an account here. If you do, great, do it. If not, then you can just sign in. And once you're here, we are actually going to be going to S3. So we are going to find this service, one of the many AWS services. Comment down below how many AWS services there are, Amazon Web Services, who knows. And once we're here, we are going to create a bucket, which is where we are going to sync these files. And so we are going to call this bash automated sync. We're going to go next. We're going to go next. We're going to go next. We're going to next and create the bucket. Then we are going to look up how to push up something to S3 from the CLI. So the CLI, the command line, the terminal, similar things. So we're changing our command a little bit. How to sync files. The documentation, our favorite place to be. And there's this command called sync, which syncs directory and S3 prefixes. It recursively copies new and updated files, blah, blah, blah. This looks like it's going to do what we want it to do. So here, essentially what we can give it is a local path on our computer and our S3 bucket. So that's kind of cool. And we have AWS S3 sync, so that is what our command is going to start with. So if we go back here, we'll just put it under this, AWS S3, that's the service we're using, sync. And then we are going to have our local file path, which is going to be dir. And then we're going to have the bucket we want to use. And so I'm also going to store this in a variable, and we'll go bucket. And we'll say we'll always have the same bucket. And in this case, if we go and look at the examples, we can see what that format's supposed to be. So here, this is the bucket. In this example, they're saying AWS S3 sync my current folder to my S3 bucket, and then it outputs every single file that it put in there. So I just kind of copy and paste. And instead of my bucket, what did we call our bucket? Something else, bash automated sync. And you'll want to make sure that is copied exactly, because if not, it is not exactly copied, then you will get errors. So let's go ahead and try this. Another thing you'll also have to do is we are using like this. I could technically put like in here and do things with, but AWS is something that's not built into my computer. It's another tool. It's a set of commands that bash doesn't really know about, so we have to install the AWS CLI. So if you do not have that installed, there's lots of different ways that you can install it. They have their own shell apparently coming out, so that's kind of cool. But you'll want to install the AWS CLI command line interface. And you can do it with this, and if this doesn't work, they have lots of different instructions on how you can do that. So let's go ahead and try to run this now. So we can sync things. You know, this is going to error. So let's go here. Hello world exists, and here it says upload blah 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 to blah blah blah. So here it actually automatically uploaded for me. If you run this, it probably will not work yet. It might say something like AWS configure. I already have my settings configured on my computer, but for some reason, if that did not work for you, you're going to go to your account and you're going to go to my security credentials. You're going to go here, and you can copy your AWS key ID and secret access key and use that for your credentials. What you'll do is in your thing, you're going to go AWS configure, you'll hit enter, and you will be able to paste in all of the credentials, and then your files should output what you want. You obviously, like you saw all those warnings, like you shouldn't be doing this. You know, ideally you're going to IAM, Identity Access Management, and you're creating users and you're using those users and there's roles, but that's a whole other side of AWS that I do not want to get into right now, but it's definitely something you can look into later on. So what exactly did we do? Let's go to S3. It said it uploaded some files, so that's great. So we'll check this out. We'll go ahead inside of this. We'll go ahead this. We'll go ahead and click this, and access denied. So let's go ahead and make this public so we can see it. So we are actually going to permissions of this bucket, turning off, we'll say confirm. And just, we're going to make this public so we can see it. There are other things that you could configure so you're not exactly making things public, but this is the easiest thing right now. Then we're going to make this public success. We can click this. Hello YouTube, that is what we programmed earlier today inside of our Hello World directory. We could also go into Sublime and edit this. It's me, Catherine. We'll save it up. Now if we refresh this, nothing will change, and that's because we have to run this script to actually push up and sync what we have locally to this S3 bucket. So we will go here, we will go up. It exists, and now it is uploading things to S3, and so now this may not work because of caching, and for some reason those public settings changed, but now we go, hello YouTube, it's me, Catherine, and that is putting our things into AWS.